Framework 1, chromatic pivoting. Besides being a beautiful practice and improvisation parameter, chromatic pivoting teaches one staggering fact, which is the cycle of fourths doesn't matter when you've prioritized voice leading. And we're going to unpack that further in a second, but first, Framework 2, 5-1 voice leading. So in this framework, we actually are using the cycle of fourths, and we hear right away that this framework is not particularly stronger than chromatic pivoting. Now, we can also see that these two frameworks have one thing in common: voice leading. So it becomes clear that voice leading is a more fundamental principle than the cycle of fourths. Now, this shouldn't be too surprising, because when you study the iconic chord progressions of the past, 300 years, I'm talking jazz standards, ubiquitous classical forms, you'll notice right away that the chord progressions only occasionally use the cycle of fourths. You can think of it like this: the cycle of fourths is just one option, but it is certainly not a rule to live by. Conversely, voice leading is a rule to live by. So these practice frameworks not only open up the entire range of the fretboard, they also teach us rule number 1, which is voice leading. And they teach us how to use voice leading in our melodic creation. Now, you might be thinking, great, thanks for showing me these two practice frameworks, but I have no idea what you're playing, and I have never seen those arpeggio shapes in my life. Well, that's exactly why I'm giving away my Intro to Fretboard Mastery course. It is free right now. Link in the description. In that free course, you'll find all of the fretboard diagrams required to get started with these two practice frameworks. You'll also find a 30-minute instructional video where I go deep explaining how you can extrapolate on these frameworks to generate new vocabulary. All right, so let's get back to voice leading, because like I said, that is literally rule number 1. And we can see that really clearly with chromatic pivoting, because in this framework, each chord change is connected by a common tone, hence pivoting. So take B flat minor and A major, for example, which are connected by D flat or C sharp. In this 2-chord progression, we can hear the strength of this chord change via the common tone pivot. And we can hear that just as clearly as we can hear the strength when we use the cycle of fourths. Hear it to hear it, right? Now you can see through voice leading, both are equally legitimate. So the staggering realization is that all chord progressions are legitimized through voice leading. That literally means that you as a composer can sequence any series of chords and make them sound good through voice leading. And that goes back to the whole idea that there are no wrong chord progressions. There are only poorly arranged chord progressions. And of course, those poorly arranged chord progressions just lack proper voice leading. Okay, but what do I mean by arranging? Well, arranging is how you play a chord progression. One single chord progression can be arranged a lot of different ways, and some of those ways are stronger than others. The strength is determined by the voice leading. For example, I can play perfectly in line with the cycle of fourths by playing this 5-1 progression, but if the voice leading is weak, then the cycle of fourths isn't going to save me, right? So no voice leading, and now the same progression with voice leading. Fundamental. But now we can clearly see that the cycle of fourths isn't the common denominator. All right, now that all the technicals are out of the way and you've gotten your copy of Intro to Fretboard Mastery, let's look at a few ways we can develop the practice according to the two practice frameworks introduced at the beginning of this video. See, the key to developing this practice is harmonic rhythm, which you'll remember from this video is the most important concept. See, harmonic rhythm is the context for all of your practice. If you fail to integrate harmonic rhythm into your practice, you might as well just play scale patterns in your parents' basement, because you'll never be able to make music with another human. But don't worry, I'm about to show you exactly how to integrate harmonic rhythm into your practice at every level. So first, that harmonic rhythm. You see it really clearly on this lick. Just pivoting off of that common tone, and then I'm chromatically moving down a half step to the A major it happens to be, and I'm just using the power of those triads right there and focusing rhythmically, like I'm just making up a little rhythmic little, 12/8 vibe, for practice. So now let's contrast that harmonic rhythm with the 5/1. Same durations, different chords. But you see what I'm thinking about is voice leading as simply as possible from that B flat, you hear it, to that F, right? And I'm just always getting that throughout the grip. I'm always getting that change throughout the grip. The B flat to an A, and also the D flat to a C. Hear it, to hear it. Right? Now you're wondering, like, the fingerings, like, what the hell are you doing fingering wise? What is this system? Fretboard mastery. I am not going to get into explaining it. I literally made the intro free. It comes down to 3 fingerings. This is why we had to give this away for free, because we literally cracked the code on fretboard fluency. It comes down to these 3 fingerings. And how I know it comes down to the 3 fingerings is because one of them crosses over with the Tim Miller, the 2-1-2s. Now, some of you know I actually did study with Tim Miller. We actually talked about Coltrane systems. But now you can see the driving principle is that these are rudiments, okay? These are meant to be used rhythmically, like they're rhythmic tools. They're rudiments. You can extrapolate on those rudiments, right? Right, that good old fingering 2 with the string skip. Not always the same string set has a string skip, but the fingering 2 is my favorite, right? So the fingering 2 is optimizing for 2 notes per string, right? Fingering 3 optimizes for the 2-1-2 combos, and then fingering 1 is optimizing for max range 2 note per strings. The point is, you're gonna find your favorite ones, right? Everyone's gonna have their favorites. I personally really love the fingering 2 setups, but I'm always using combinations of fingering 2s and fingering 3s, depending on where I find myself on the fretboard. Like which notes do I need to connect to articulate that harmonic rhythm? And you can see these are just like 2-chord harmonic rhythms, but one thing that's really great about the combination of chromatic pivoting and 5/1 voice leading is you can get to all these different keys, right? So just take a second for chromatic pivoting and let's go a little bit deeper, because we've talked about pivoting on the 3rd, but there's also the idea of pivoting off of the root. And once you fully mastered chromatic pivoting, you're just alternating between pivoting off the 3rds or pivoting off the root. So for example, take that A major, and I'll pivot off A to go to A minor. And now I'll pivot off of C to go to A flat major. See that alternate pathway right there, right? It's like you think it's the 5 chord, but it's like the backdoor alternate of the 5 chord. Because you hear this movement. And is this the first inversion 5 chord? Or is it the down a half step modulation? So using those techniques, we can traverse some key centers, and now you start to see, you make a practice system by creating harmonic rhythms, and then you navigate those harmonic rhythms using the full range fretboard mastery pathways. This exercise will literally unequivocally blow up the fretboard for you, and not just the fretboard, it's your musicianship, it's your rhythm, it's your ability to play harmonic rhythm. That's what this is blowing up. And really, that's everything you need to get started to take this practice to an extremely deep level. Like, you can extrapolate. Now, if you're feeling a bit blocked in your creativity, that's something I can fix, right? That's one of the main things that guitar growth hacking is based on. It's really just busting open your infinite creativity glitch and leveraging the fretboard fundamentals as a visual aid. Because intervals are geometry, but across the fretboard, we can see that geometry. And that's the implication of fretboard mastery, is like, oh, unlock harmonic fluency on the fretboard, and now you're an interval master. You're a 12-tone wizard. So we get on a call, we'll talk a little bit about this, and we'll see where it takes us. Link to book a call in the description. Fretboard Mastery free in the description. No excuse not to achieve mastery.